Okay. So, guys, welcome to this at another session during our lockdown. Today, we have a very special guest who is Bryan. Bryan has been a very good friend of mine for the last few years. We have done a number of workshops together already locally, and we have also done a number of sessions and seminars out here in Dubai. So, he always is a great inspiration. His work is truly phenomenal. The way he sees color, the way he sees pattern is something that really inspires me a lot. Um, Meanwhile, he's also a publisher of so many books. It's very hard to go through all the books, but some of his most famous books are Understanding Exposure, Learning to See Creatively, Beyond Portraiture, and there's also Field Guide to Understanding Composition. And very recently, I think he has also released one more book, which is Exposure Solutions. So he's also a speaker and a tutor on Adorama TV, which is quite a popular channel on YouTube. And
Let me correct you real quick, Subud. I'm not
yeah,
at
please.
Adorama no more. Haven't been there
No
for
more. Okay.
no, for 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, for 2 years you're done with them. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's been shooting for longer than I've been on planet Earth. So definitely a lot of experience that he holds and a lot to learn from him. He has had a lot of clients, including American Express, Kodak, Philips, Citibank, and many, 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 many more. And as far as awards go, I won't even get started because I think it will take a long, long time to get through all the awards that he has won. So, so I think it's time to hand over to Bryan. Please
All
inspire us.
right. Hey, thank you. Well, I'll do my best, but yeah, a couple of things. I'm hoping to show up over at B&H Photo in the next few months with my series, You Keep Shooting stuff. But I'm also, just in case people said, where'd you go? I took that entire program over to my own website, youkeepshooting.com. And unlike Adorama, which was 2 videos a month, we release 16 videos a month over here at You Keep Shooting. And it's also monthly critiques as well as 16 videos a month and Q&A. We have a live webinar once a month. Anyway, go check it out if you're interested in seeing more of the stuff that you used to see at Adorama. In the meantime, like you, I as of 3 days ago, I'm going to get a $1,000 ticket if I leave my house for any other reason other than food or gas or got to go to the doctor, God forbid. And so I'm doing what you guys are doing, which is trying to figure out ways to maintain my creativity. And we'll get into more of that at the end of the program. But what was I doing before all this lockdown? I thought, we can share that with you. But I interrupt this program for a public service message. Wash your hands. And you know me, when's the best time to wash your hands vertically? Right after you wash them horizontally, So, all right, 20 seconds, that's right. All right, the minimum. And let's hope, let's really hope that before this year's out, COVID has been put to bed. And that's gosh, wouldn't that be awesome? Okay, with that in mind, I just want to share with you in Quebec just some images that really were important at the time. They still are. In other words, a body of work just to familiarize yourself with some of my work for those of you that are brand new to me. This is, of course, the work that I've done as I've traveled around the world. I'm very, very lucky to be able to do that. And I just don't know how much longer I can stay indoors, but I will honor the wishes of the government for the benefit of those that really need the help. And the world will just have to wait. And I hope to come to Dubai. I haven't been to Dubai in a couple of years. So anyway, let's get into the kind of the nitty gritty of what accounts for our success. There's a lot of reasons why we attribute our success to different things, but certainly prior experience. I'm successful because, oh gosh, I've been doing this for a long time. But that to me has only so much weight. To me personally, from day one, if you are curious about the world around you, you're already ahead of a lot of people. You're also asking a lot of questions, hey, what if I, stand here and just wait for this? Or what if I climb the stairs and What if I get a drone? What if I lay on the street and pretend that I'm dead and see what happens, and then shoot up at the people that look down on me like I'm dead? And that's one way to get people to look down on you. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. We call those the serendipitous moments. Or you head out the door with a shoot list. Or in this case, you don't head out the door, but you simply put a shoot list together and say, I'm going to go through my house and photograph nothing but blue. Or no, I'm going to only photograph diagonal lines today, which is a great exercise, by the way, of anything like this to help you become a more refined compositional photographer. And I've often said, and I'll say it again, as much as people want to believe that light is everything, and we've all heard these quotes over the years, and they're valuable and valid up to a point, but in my opinion, light is critical to make the photograph. But ultimately, let me just share with you what I believe to be true, which is really simply this, that great light rarely salvages a poor composition. But a great composition will always salvage poor light. Just keep that in mind, okay? Sometimes we put an emphasis on the light way too much and we don't pay attention to the composition. So what do you do on a day like today? Well, you go out in your backyard and you look up in the sky and you just look at clouds, and then you go, oh my God, look at that cloud. It looks like an old man smoking. Of course, it's a sideways cloud, but you just turn the camera and then project the image vertically, and there's the old man smoking. No Photoshop involved. This is just the clouds doing their thing. And that's what you do when you got too much time on your hands. You look up at the sky. Or you grab phone books out of the garbage and you set them up on a table in the backyard and photograph the pages of the phone book with a macro lens, because you're practicing, once again, composition and the use of line and textures and patterns. Or back in the good old days when you could travel, you head out the door and all you do is say, okay, today's nothing but color. I don't care about the content. I care about the compositional arrangement of just color. So in Burano, Italy, my God, if you can't come away from Burano, Italy with a colorful composition, then you have your camera set to black and white. That's the only reason why you don't have color shots, because color is everywhere. And even with this drain pipe on the side of a building that's already had faded pink painting, and beyond that is a somewhat of a crimson red and blue and yellow building. But that black drain pipe is reflecting a lot of color. So we get in close and make nothing but a composition of lines and colorful lines, as well as the textures of that one building on the left. Yeah, I know this is silly, and you got to be careful here, because in New York City, not because of the COVID, but this was a couple years ago in Brooklyn, when you approach with a macro lens somebody's car, especially a door handle, they might think you're trying to steal their car. So be careful, have a bodyguard with you. As was the case here, I liked all the colors reflecting on this black car and the door handle. The colors are coming from the graffiti that you see there, and reflecting on the car itself. Again, just looking for color. And I want to also mention, in terms of the creative process, you really, in my opinion, need to be proactive. If you spend your life walking the streets and looking for the image and hoping it somehow miraculously appears, you'll have a lot of drought in between shots, a lot of dry spells. You need to get involved. And here's a case in point, this famous field in Tuscany, Italy. These flowers, in my opinion, they're okay, but they're not great in terms of their location. They're too low to the ground. I want to get them higher. I want to focus really close with a super wide. So I did, and end up with this photograph here. But obviously, I couldn't have done that without the hand of Bryan Peterson holding that flower up in front of the lens. So that's what I mean by getting proactive, getting involved. Other times, as I mentioned, you get these serendipitous moments. I'm just waiting at a giant mural in the Bowery at this intersection of Houston and Bowery in Lower Manhattan. And I was there an hour, and among other things, I got a shot that you see here. It's interesting to say the least. The man dog was doing his thing while the mural, the young jolly green giant boy is not too happy about it. Again, willingness to change point of view. I've often said that's a big part of one's creativity if you want to expand your vision. So it's a matter of asking yourself, what if? What if I take a look at the world from the viewpoint of those buttercups? And what if I put a telephoto lens on and go in super tight? More often than not, you'll see shots like this. What I mean by this is that you're in a greenhouse, this is in Holland, and there's tulips everywhere, and everybody stands above and shoots down and just gets this pattern without thinking of laying on their butt and shooting through a bunch of tulips to that particular one that I've framed. And a lot of people, I will tell you, they'll tell me they don't do it because they feel embarrassed. And I'm thinking, well, okay, then don't do it. But the fact of the matter is, most of us could care less if you're going to sit there and take a photograph. We're not really worried about you. We're worried more about my job or my kids or my husband or my wife or my whatever. I really don't care what you're doing laying on the ground. So with that in mind, get on the ground and shoot pictures like this here with telephoto lenses, 300 millimeter in this case, and wide open to allow you to get the out of focus background that you see there. And speaking of which, I met this young girl in Brno. She's a cardiology student at the University of Prague. How do I know this? Because I like to know who I'm photographing. And so after introducing myself and whatnot, I visited with her, took a photograph utilizing the green background. Very simple, real clean. It's one way to assure clean compositions. Moving into another area that's, I just posted today. If you haven't noticed, check it out later on Instagram. The frustration a lot of people have with wide angle lenses, they don't get close enough and they miss the foreground opportunities. So you'll notice on the far left here, there's some white flowers, and I had a student swear to me, this is their shot. No, look, I put the flowers in the foreground. I said, no, you didn't. They're in the foreground, but they're not in the foreground. I want to be able to sneeze. I want to grab my nose because I have flower allergies. I want you to make me feel I need to have some medicine. So what do you mean exactly? Well, what I mean is you literally push the flowers up against the lens almost. And to get this kind of a foreground, it's a big, big difference. Same idea here, going back to what we talked about a moment ago with the tulip, where people don't want to lay on the street. Some people will use the argument that it's dirty. It's like, well, okay, then take a blanket with you, because then you can take a shot like this. This is in Amsterdam, and these are the tram tracks, and you've already timed this, so you don't have to worry. The trams run every 4 minutes. So after one goes by, you got 3 minutes and 59 seconds to take an 8-second exposure. That's a lot of time. Okay. And same idea here, where we have a little opening in that fence that's on that bridge. And that opening allows us to frame up the distant windmill. Again, wide angle lens, immediate foreground interest. This was just literally last month in the Lofton Islands in Norway. I had a student right next to me, and she was shooting this scene here, and I said, why are you not up at the edge of that little stream that's running into the ocean? And she said, well, I don't want to get my pants wet. I said, okay, well, you've got a really big, giant, dry area of foreground. That's not interesting at all. And she said, oh, I thought that was a nice texture. And I said, no, it's a texture you can't even feel. I mean, you really don't feel it because you're not there in front of it. It's not shouting at us. The wide angle lens has this ability to amplify what I call the front row seat. So first you got to photograph the front row seat to amplify the noise of that foreground. And in this case, that's a very quiet foreground of texture. So I finally convinced her that getting wet on her knees, because all she's got to do is go to her knees, was well worth it. And sure enough, we walked away with this particular photograph, which obviously, in my opinion, has both a greater sense of texture and line, and not to mention a reflection of the actual mountain and, of course, color from the blue sky. Yeah, there you go. Lesson learned. And again, I had a student say, no, I got foreground. I said, you don't have enough. Oh my God, what do I got to do? I said, just go left, more left, and get more soapy, sudsy water. Okay, now she was happy. And yeah, let me, this is a video I want to share with you. I got to play this here. Here we go. Yeah, okay, wide angle. And you get a shot like that, okay? All in camera, there's no trickery here. That's with a Sigma 15 millimeter 2.8 full frame fisheye, believe it or not. And it's shot at f/22 with the depth of field scale in place, where I'm utilizing manual focus, and that accounts for the massive depth of field. There are people out there who, to this day, and boy, I wish I could shut them down. There's chat sites out there that say don't ever shoot more than f/11 because you get lens diffraction. It's like, what's that? I don't know, but I hear it's like the COVID-19. You don't want it. It's like, no, it's fine. f/22 is great. You get massive depth of field. No, 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 you get lens diffraction and halos and pixelation. It's like, where? I don't know, but it's there. Okay, well, here's the problem. I want to stress this, okay? Here's an example. We got a young lady jumping for us in a little dike, but we got to get foreground interest, so we're going to use these dandelion flowers, and there they are. All right, so there's f/22. Focus at a meter in manual focus, which is what we've done. And this only works, by the way, with 14 to 24 millimeter lenses on a full frame and 10 to 16 millimeters on a crop sensor. So at those focal lengths, you will manually focus to 1 meter. You can actually find 1 meter with most lenses on the distance scale and set the 1 meter at the distance mark on the lens. And that in turn allows you to shoot massive depth of fields of like 13 inches to infinity. And here's why you don't want to listen to those people that shoot at f/11, because here's f/11. And take a look at the foreground, okay? The foreground flowers are out of focus at f/11. At f/22, they're sharp. Where's the diffraction that you're all worried about? There isn't any. Okay, yes, there is, but come on, be realistic. It's a small thing, and most of us are definitely illustrating and putting our stuff on the tiniest of frames, that being Instagram. And believe me, Instagram's not going to show diffraction. Not to mention, it's a resolution of 72 on your overall digital quality. So you're out there, and this begs the other question: why are we all anxious to shoot with a 70 megapixel camera and then post to Instagram? I've never understood that logic. It doesn't make sense. You can shoot with the old D2X and be happy on Instagram, just if that's your platform. Obviously, if you're doing fine art prints, that's a different story. But anyway, let's move on. Again, f/22, foreground interest. Yeah, massive depth of field, wide angle lens. The other thing I tell students all the time is when it comes to street photography, something that I certainly enjoy, is stake your claim, so to speak. Grab a corner, grab a bench, grab a third floor of a parking structure, wherever you might be, and just hold tight and wait for stuff to happen. The world I live in, which I think is pretty close to yours in terms of activity, until recently, is a happening place. So just pick a spot. Well, clearly my style of photography, it would make sense that I'm going to want to stop my boat that I've rented on the Ganges River at this spot because of the red and white striped stairs. And I know this is an active area. I've seen people coming and going. So I'm going to wait. I didn't have to wait long. Got the telephoto lens on, and people are using those stairways. Here they come. Okay. So a morning well spent if it stops with this lady. But it didn't. I mean, I must have got a dozen shots on this particular morning with the pictures that you see like this. Likewise, just up the river, all these reflections on the water from the people that are bathing. And many times we're so consumed by activity that we don't see the other things happening around us. Now, again, I'm a color guy. So I can clearly see the color on the steps. But I'm also more intrigued with the reflections. And amongst all those reflections, believe it or not, is a young gentleman who's simply meditating in the Ganges. And many times we don't see shots like this. There's an old saying, you can't see the forest because you're in the trees. And this is one of those examples.
This is
Of
stunning.
course, the opportunity to use motion. Any questions? I'm sorry?
That's what I was saying. If anyone has any questions at any given point, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The other thing that expands people's vision, which unfortunately doesn't get nearly enough attention, and I'm suggesting to all of you, if you were to embrace the absolute potential craziness in terms of in a positive way, the crazy results that you can get from exploiting shutter speed, you'll be miles ahead of the competition. But again, I'm surprised even to this day, after even writing a book called Understanding Shutter Speed, believe it or not, there's still a very small number of people that are doing anything with shutter speed. The most obvious and the most challenging, I will even suggest, is panning, where utilizing shutter speeds of a 15th to a 25th of a second in that range. And then simply focusing on and moving with at the same direction, at the same speed of people in activities. In this case, a little girl walking. This is in Little India, Singapore. And this is a rodeo here in America, in North Dakota. This was last summer. A very slow speed, in this case, by slow, I mean 1/8 of a second. And I want to stress, I'm not an individual who's going to get all excited about utilizing a slow speed in the forest, you know, where people shoot trees up and down. That's so old. It's like, oh my God, please. It's like trying to look at another picture of Antelope Canyon in Arizona. It's like, not another Antelope Canyon shot. I can't take it. So what we can do is be inventive and do stuff like this. And how is this done? Serendipitous in the respect that the day prior, I purchased a necklace at a local market in Omo Valleys, Ethiopia. And I put it on this young man after he was painted by a makeup artist who I had hired and brought with me to the workshop. And this is what the result was. Here's the video itself. You can see it's really quick, so pay attention. And 30th and 40th, the ghosting just like that, okay? So that's what accounts for this effect here. And the black background, as you saw, comes from the two other local tribal people or my assistants, and they're holding up some black cloth, so you can see it there. 30th and 40th, so one more time. So 30th of a second is what's giving you that effect. As I mentioned, I'm not into shooting the the horizontal shot of all the trees, you know. This has been done thousands and thousands of times. It's been happening, believe it or not. First time this was ever done was 1988, as near as I could tell. And it's embarrassing 32 years later that people still shoot the sweeping tree shot and they post and they go, whoa, I'm so amazing. It's like, no, you're not. You're doing what you've been doing for 38 years. Do something different. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, what are you going to do different? Well, how about we put somebody in the forest and they go up and down, up and down. So when together, it's like we're on the same page. So I go down, I go up, I go down, I go up. And she, meaning the model, her name's Maya, she goes up and down with me. Then we can say to ourselves, hey, this is something new, hadn't been done before. And again, the shutter speed idea. Same thing here, where we're going to shoot two things. We're going to shoot 9 exposures in camera in continuous high, and we're going to rotate the camera at the same time. So it's like this as we're shooting. And when we do that, we get this effect, all in camera, 9 images all stacked up. But because we're moving the camera and zooming the lens from wide to telephoto, you get this buildup. It's a very powerful and effective technique, especially for pictures with color. And this is going way back. It occurred to me 40 years into my career. I said, man, when's the last time I took the camera off the tripod deliberately during a 30-second exposure and then just literally wave the camera around in the air as I pointed at the Eiffel Tower. So you're going to start out and take a 30-second exposure, but at the 15-second mark, camera comes off the tripod. And then you literally are going to just twist and turn as the camera points and faces into those lights. Now, here's the good news. I'm utilizing, in this case, a 14 to 24. So at 14, I take the shot, but then I go to 24, which I zoom in a little tighter, and then allows me to do more of the, what's going to happen is for 15 seconds, is I'm going to have just nothing but what I call a silly string. We've all seen silly string at a party perhaps, but silly string in terms of lighting. And there it is. And it just superimposes on top of the original Eiffel Tower shot simply because it's the other half of that 30-second exposure. So again, why not try it? Here I did not do it at the same time. This is a standard shot from my hotel in Hong Kong. And again, 40 years go by and I'm thinking, man, when's the last time you just did something crazy? So I took the camera off tripod, and once again, for 30 seconds, because this is a 30-second exposure, I just twirled the camera around and zoomed and did all sorts of stuff. You know, is it art? I don't know, but I can tell you this much, it's a nice break from the normal stuff. And something you just, if nothing else, you know, oh, we interrupt this program to provide you with a commercial. My workshop schedule is out. As you can imagine, like most people doing workshops, we're not. They've been postponed till next year. Not all of them by any means, but I hope to start up in June. My schedule in June is all America. For the most part, my workshops are sold out this year. There's, I think, 1 or 2 openings, but check it out, Bryan F. Peterson, photoworkshops.com. But more importantly, I want to share this with you. My 2021 schedule is almost finished and will be posted May the 1st. So here's why this is important. Just like last year, I offered a $200 discount for the first 48 hours when that 2021 schedule was released. And if you want to be notified about the release of the schedule and have the opportunity to take advantage of that discount, just simply email me at bryanfpeterson2@me.com. And I'll make sure you put into the database, and then you'll be notified. Schedule's out. Take advantage. You got 48 hours to sign up for something. All right, some useful information. We'll step outside one moment of the art of seeing and come into some technical stuff. A lot of new photographers don't know about Sunny 16, and it's the old way of exposing, and nothing's changed, except on the one hand, the dynamic range of a lot of the newer cameras is such that Sunny 16 still works, but unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, you do pick up more detail than you used to in the shadows, and that's too bad. I'm complaining because I miss the black. That would happen when shadows would go black. Anyway, Sunny 16 simply means that at f16, your shutter speed is the same number of ISO. And that is a correct exposure combination when your subject is in the sun, not on a cloudy day, not an overcast day, but literally in the sun, and it's front lit or side lit. So the sun's blasting your subject. You're thinking, oh my God, what should my exposure be? Well, f16 at a 400th of a second, or in this case, let's say 200th of a second with 200 ISO. Trust me, it'll be a correct exposure. I promise, guaranteed. And you're thinking, well, what if I don't want to be at f16 for depth of field reasons? Hang on, I got an answer for you. But this is an example of that. Surrounding this student who's willing to jump up in the air for me and my other students is obviously shadows. We are front lit, as you can see here, and we in turn are shadows because the sun's behind us. So there's a big shadow in front of us, which is us. And in that area below, we're above, obviously, shooting down, is a big pocket of sunlight. This is a metering nightmare. It can be. So instead, don't you mess with it. It's a front lit scene. The subject's in the front light. So just do f16, in this case, a 400th of a second with 400 ISO. That freezes her action as she jumps up in the air, and we all got a correct exposure. So same thing here. This is a front lit scene. The buildings behind us are causing the shadows. And you'll see that the exposure is correct for the man in the sunlit wall. Not a problem. But as I mentioned, what if you don't want to be at f16 at a 200th of a second? Or if you're using 400, f16 at a 400th of a second? You just simply do the math. You go full stops in either direction. So if the picture, for example, of the young lady jumping was f16 at 200 with 200 ISO, and you're thinking, oh, that's too slow to hand hold, well, then you can do f11 at a 400th or f8 at an 800th, assuming the absence of 16, 11 to 8th, assuming the absence of the depth of field isn't going to be an issue, which I don't think in that case it certainly would have been. So anyway, embrace it. Sunny 16 is an awesome thing to use. Now here, the only thing at Sunny 16 is the flag in the sky. The ducks below are in the shadows, but they're going to be coming into the area of sunlight that is reflected from that flag. And I just want to share this with you briefly. Any reflection is Sunny 16 plus 1 because the water absorbs a full stop of light. But nonetheless, we wait for the duck to come into play. I want to, out of fairness, this duck was what I call a chummed. I had some Doritos and I put them in the water to have him come over. Just a couple of little Doritos. And I'm sure he lived after eating those Doritos. I got a hunch he was fine. Here we are looking for ways to improve our photography. And I've often used the argument with students, why can't we as location photographers have the same luxury of studio photographers? And what I mean by luxury has nothing to do with lighting. It has everything to do with being the master and commander of the art that is in front of us. I don't know of any studio photographer who shoots food and is told, whatever you do, don't you dare arrange that food. You shoot it just as it is. He's like, what? No, I have to arrange it to make it arty. Well, the same thing is true, in my opinion, when you're out in the field. You are a nature photographer, a lover of food or a lover of nature, who cares? Your job is to come back with a compelling photograph. So in this case here, I love texture, I love color. So let's pull a leaf off the floor, the forest floor, and we'll just stick it in that little crack of the tree. So we've accomplished two things. We now have a still life of a leaf, and we're going to shoot it against the beautiful texture. Pure and simple. Now, of course, people are going to say, did you put that there? Yeah, you got a problem with that? That's my answer. Well, it's not natural. Either is putting a piece of cake with some side light on it in a studio and having a mist on the knife handle. That's not natural. That's all pretend stuff. Look, you guys, the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to justify moving stuff around. Let's forget about that, okay? Your job is to create art. You have an empty canvas. Your digital sensor is a canvas. Can you imagine telling a painter that he's only can use the color black? I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course not. He says, well, I don't want to paint anymore. It'd be like the same idea here. So use whatever means are required to make it happen. Be transparent about it. I mean, if no one's, I could care less. People say, well, did you put that there? Yeah, why? You got a problem with it? Well, we don't do that at my camera club. I change camera clubs. When's the best time to shoot a vertical? Well, you already know the answer to that. Right after the horizontal. Always remember that. It'll double your success every time. And yeah, here we're at a tree farm. We ask permission to go in, no problem, and shoot all the pictures you want. So we bring out the telephoto lens. And really stormy day on this day. Wind is blowing like crazy. And slow shutter speed to create that motion effect of the wind blowing through the leaves. This was taken a long time ago. Some of you know this shot. If you look at the left of your screen, there's some yellow perch. And I asked the owner at the Dubai fish market, which I understand is no longer there, but I asked him if I could play with this fish. And he said, as long as you don't cause my customers to go away. So I was very careful about that and arranged some fish and just took some close-ups. Again, I mean, I've been to countless fish markets and they're a phenomenal place to shoot color and texture, once again. You see what's coming here. I'm sure you do. We're going to do a merger between that back smokestack and the young lady smoking, just like that. Again, opportunities. You guys are so lucky. Man, I'm telling you, you get to have Vinette Foray tomorrow. That's the merger king, man. I'm telling you, this guy is amazing. I would kill to have a tenth of his vision. He is really a remarkable, remarkable man. Yeah, you're going to see a ton of this kind of stuff from him and this kind of stuff as well. I'm inside a car. It's raining. I'm with a young lady who wants a portfolio shot. As I was in the car to get a battery, actually, I looked out through the window and I asked her to move just a little bit. And she did. And then I was able to line up some drops and direct mergers over her eyeballs. Again, these are just serendipitous moments. You don't plan them. I'm doing a book, a brand new book. Just finished it, actually. It'll be out in August, called Understanding Photographing People. It's brand new, People, How to Photograph People book. And here's some examples from that book. Again, from my travels all over the world the last couple of years. And I, of course, like most of my books, it's not just pictures of people with captions and stuff. I mean, it's got, you know, the behind the scenes kind of thing and helpful hints along the way, including here. This is at the masjid at the Old Delhi. I think it's called the Jama Masjid. And this is Nadik Plangdi. She's the makeup artist I've used so much in the last couple of years. She's from Thailand. She's modeling as well. And we got some beautiful overhead light coming in from the left here. This is a direct result of Sunny 16. I want to stress that. As a result, everything else around it's gone really dark. But if you don't do Sunny 16, a lot of people shooting aperture priority these days, and they're going to get shots like this instead, which are, in my opinion, they're no good. And you're, well, I'll fix it later in post. It's like, oh, if there's one thing I hate hearing a lot, and it's a constant reframe, oh, I'll fix it later in post processing. Why? Just do it in camera. This is the classic Sunny 16, and just go for it. It's not hard. It's easy to do. You got to do it in manual, because in aperture priority, the meter says, oh gosh, we got light and dark here. Don't you worry, Brian. I'll average those two together and get you this. Well, that's not what I want. I want this. So Sunny 16, you get this every time. All right. Likewise, this isn't Sunny 16. This is where we have to use a spot meter reading. But we got a gentleman here in Jodhpur, India, sitting outside of what will soon be a new store he's building. And he's got his hair dyed really bright orange with the henna. And at that point, I motioned to the camera and mentioned I'd like to take his picture and I blah, blah, blah. But here's the problem. You have all that dark around him. And the meter is going to look at all that as you zoom in tight with the telephoto. And it's going to overexpose the guy, okay? Because the meter's going to say, well, I got dark, I got light. Okay, I'll give you an average. But the solution here is to go spot meter reading. And I'm not one who's a big fan of spot because I'm an idiot who will set my spot and then forget I did it, move on. And then I'm getting some really wacky readings. And then it's like 4 or 5 series of images later, I remember, oh God, I forgot I'm in spot. So I go back. I wish that you could set it in spot and it would like shut off after a minute. That's something I want Nikon to work on for my benefit. Anyway, spot meter reading is radically different. Take a look. It just sees the light on his face, which is a bright, overcast day. And it's a difference about a stop and a third, but it's a big difference. Much better. And again, I don't have to do it later in post. I did it in camera. So that's another advantage. Same thing here, lady on the left, but I want to warn you ahead of time. Dark skinned people require, if you're going to stay in aperture priority, or if you're in manual, either way, if you're in aperture priority, make sure you use your override at -1 1/3. And if you're in manual, meter at -1 1/3. Your light meter thinks the world is gray. And when it comes across dark skin as well as white skin or white snow, and by white skin, I mean people that are super fair skin, but more like snow, the meter jumps and gets all excited and says, man, that's so not gray. And right away it's saying, but don't you worry, I will make it gray. So in terms of white snow, the meter is saying, I'll make that gray because the world's gray. And sure enough, you get underexposed gray snow. Not what you want. You want white snow. So in white, you go +1, if not +1 1/3. With dark-skinned subjects, meter says, don't you worry, I'll make her gray, which is overexposed, which you don't want. So -1 1/3 solves that problem. And just ignore what the meter says. You go -1 1/3, you'll be fine. You get a perfect exposure every time. Here's a case in point. In the Konzo tribe in Ethiopia, I met this elderly man, had him sit down for a portrait. I let the camera do its thing. Here's what the camera gave me. It essentially made him gray. Now I go -1 1/3, and I got my correctly exposed subject. Again, done in camera. I don't have to do this later in post. It's wonderful, okay? Taking advantage again of slow speeds when shooting portraits. The wind is blowing like crazy. She's looking out the window of an old fort in Key West, Florida. Her name is Nancy. She's a student of mine. And I'm assisting a student as she shoots Nancy getting blown by the wind. My job is to hold the reflector to get some fill light behind her. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but I still use reflectors. People say, I don't use reflectors. I just use the shadow slider in post. It's like, why? You can get it done in camera. Use a reflector. I don't understand that. If you got the tools to do it in camera, do it in camera, as was the case here. This is Natikin, and she's my assistant, as well as my model, as well as my makeup artist. This is like, boy, the best of 3 worlds. Assistant, makeup artist, and model. And what I mean by assistant, she's holding the loom cube after she's draped herself in the light. You have a question? No? Okay. Selective focus. Here we're in Bagan, Myanmar, and we got a few flowers in the foreground. We got our model Wasana Janjan in the background. Focus through those flowers to get a really nice horizontal of her, and those flowers complement, obviously, the colorful umbrella behind her, and we get shots like this. And to be clear, she is a model who travels with colored contacts, and in this case, she's wearing blue. And now we're in Singapore together, and I'm going to shoot down that wall with my 200 to 500 Nikkor, which allows me to compress the space of all those colors in front of her, as well as the orange and blue building behind her. So I literally just go right up to that wall and just push my cheek right up against it with the camera and lens and zoom out, and there's your yellow and red foreground against the blue and orange building in the background. And again, those are blue contacts that she's wearing. That's not a Photoshop trick, but she actually wears those. Now we move on to Millennium Park in Chicago, and nothing more than a beautiful fall day in Millennium Park and people outside enjoying themselves back in the good old days. And here we've got a bunch of plastic tent around them, and I'm thinking, why do people have to always be in focus? Why can't they be abstract? So it's a good question. So let's think about that. How can we make an abstract of these people? Simple. We focus only on the plastic wrinkled textures, stop the lens all the way down, in this case to 22. This is with a 18 to 300 Nikkor on my D500. And I'm at around the 120 millimeter mark as I focus on this plastic. And sure enough, there's the shot. That's one example at f22 at 120 millimeters. And here's another example. Again, this is not Nick filters. This is not, whatever is out there, whatever, this isn't Liquify or whatever it's called in Photoshop. I don't even know how to use it. It's you being creative in camera. And to me, man, I've been at this too long. I can't imagine why you would want to not push your camera to the limits. Because believe me, you haven't even come close. You're relying on Photoshop perhaps way too much to pull off your ideas. And I'm all about Photoshop, which you're going to discover here in a moment. But let's use it to expand our vision, not replace our vision, please. Here's an example. Again, a workshop. This is in Savannah, Georgia. We're at a bus stop, and that's Lexi, one of my students. And why not? So let's make this a really nice shot. And here again, when we're thinking about shooting portraits, there's this unspoken rule, which has to be tossed, that you have to show the whole face. Why? Well, it's not a portrait otherwise. What? Come on, seriously? You can show an eyeball and people are going to know it's a person. Here's my point. We'll just do a half face, okay? And take advantage. Wow, I just noticed that's a dirty slide. Look at that on her nose. There's like a little something there. Anyway, I'll clean that up for my next presentation. Yeah, and she, by the way, also has blue contacts on. And she has blue eyes, so she's one of those people that wanted even more blue. Anyway, you get the idea. Half a face works just fine. This is all about pattern and color and line. And of course, a very graphic. Oh, I already forgot I got this in here twice. Why? Because I thought you wanted to see it twice, though. Here's Lexi again. Now, behind her is a church. And it had rained like hell 2 hours earlier. And there's big puddles now left over. And that church is being front lit. Its reflections you can see in the pond, but Lexi's in the shadow area. So she records in that reflection as a silhouette. And now let's make it more interesting and shoot as I drop a pebble into that water, which creates a splash. And there it is. Really cool abstract. And another one. I guess not. I thought I had two in there, but I don't. The other thing you want to try to do is create contrast. So I'm in Bangkok, and I have never seen anybody dressed like this before. And needless to say, I'm going to tell you a little story. I've never yet been wrong about this. When you see somebody on the street dressed in such attire, they are begging you or anybody with a camera to please stop them and say, can I take their picture? They're not out there to not be noticed. They're out there to be noticed. So I got to know this young man, and I spent almost a half hour with him up and down the streets of Bangkok, including having him just do a simple jump in front of this mural. I forgot this is an advertisement, I think, for a cell phone company, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, which I cut out of the composition when I framed this up with him. I didn't want to obviously share with you that it was an ad for a cell phone company. Anyway, this is where we utilize contrast, two directly different kind of things. Same idea here. This is a forest fire. Once again, it's Maya in a formal dress in what was once a raging fire. And again, this incredible contrast between the subject and its surroundings is what causes the attention. Here it's a color contrast. My point of view is certainly different as well. I'm moving in really close with my 18 to 300. No, I'm sorry, my apologies. 24 to 120 Nikkor on my D850. And the background is a orange tarp that is outside of the tent. It's like a wiping mat that's outside the tent where I'm camping with this particular tribe. And she was just happened to be sitting there. So this was an idea that was born from watching a woman come around the corner and then back away. She was shy. And I happened to have with me a model. So I sent the model up to the same place where this lady had walked away from. And I said, just stand there for me. Again, going back to the idea of utilizing only half of a face. And we do that like so. And again, this idea that when you shoot a portrait, oh my God, you got to show the whole face. It's not true. Not at all. You do want to get in close. In my opinion, this composition falls short. And the biggest reason is because there's too much else going on that causes me to not put all my focus and attention on the young girl. Some beautiful light coming through there. Let's simply move in closer. The one thing that's a real distraction for me personally is the gray window, metal door that's the metal, it's closed, but there's like a metal shutters that are closed. It's so not necessary. So we get in closer and now we accomplish what we were trying to do, which is a colorful portrait without distraction. Sometimes you cannot have the background you wish. And then it occurred to you, wait a minute, she's got a black jacket on. She can help assisting me by holding that up herself over and behind her head. And then I move in closer and sure enough, there you go, problem solved. The wind kicks up and I've seen photographers do this. They'll say, oh, wait a minute, you got hair across your face. And they'll actually brush it aside. I'm thinking, no, First, shoot it and then brush it aside. So then you have the wind shot, okay? This idea that you got all these silly rules that, oh, you can't have the wind blowing across the subject's face. Why? Well, I don't know. That's just doesn't look good. I disagree. And it may not look good, but at least you have it just in case.
I think it's more feminine also to have the hairs blow
Oh,
up.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Good point. This is a shot taken by a student, and I will be, out of fairness to the student, she had only been shooting for 3 months. And she was very proud of this and said, look, I'm so happy with this. And I said, I can understand why. You're young. You've only been shooting a few months. But it's got a few problems, not the least of which is we're not filmed in frame, and there's some parts of the image here that are asking a lot of questions. What's she holding? I can't see whatever's in her arms. And anyway, so I worked with her, and I said, first, let's just take a portrait of the lady in yellow and utilize utilize the wall as a seamless background, real, just so clean. Oh, wait, I guess we're going to do the window shot. All right, so there's the window shot. Frame within a frame, and then we'll go ahead and do the wall before we move on. And right away, it was a valuable lesson for her to appreciate cleaning up the composition. And here we're back in Agra. This is a daily occurrence. I literally know it's a daily occurrence because every time I've been to Agra, I go over to the bridges and they're doing laundry. Some days are better than others. I was just there on the 12th of March. No, I'm sorry, 16th of March. And it wasn't very good. This was a year ago. And the only thing missing, in my opinion, was we need somebody to be in that scene, offering up a sense of scale. So we found a couple of young boys down on the river's edge. From the bridge, we were hollering at them, and they were very kind and gracious enough to run through without stepping on the laundry, just to give it a sense of scale. So, and how ironic that the one boy had a yellow and purple striped shirt on. It was just like, what? Anyway, very lucky. And here we got an obvious background. I say obvious because it is to me, perhaps not to you, but this is in Jaipur near the Monkey Temple. And the background is just, man, shoot that guy. Orange background, he's wearing a yellow shirt. So you put on the telephoto lens and sure enough, there's your photo. That's how it's done. Keep it clean, keep it simple. That's been my philosophy. I'm not sure what this is doing in here. Let me see. Oh, wow, that's out of order. I see what the problem is. Okay, coming up. Let me go back. Forget the umbrella shot, but this one here, these are stuff you do in your home. Okay, now we're going to start talking about what can you do to stay busy at home. If you got an outside deck area, maybe you've done it before, do it again. Because again, trust me, it'll be different. Fill up a glass dish with water and some oil and wait for it to settle down. Make sure that it's elevated, and behind it, use a glass table is ideal. And then on the ground underneath the glass table is some colorful fabric. And you can spend hours, literally hours doing this. Obviously, if it's windy outside, you got problems. That's going to blow the water and the oil around. But this is just another idea for you. Now, here's the thing. I got way too much time in my hands. All right, I hope you enjoyed that joke. So much time that, what am I doing? Well, believe it or not, I'm allowing Photoshop to expand my vision. All right, so let's take a look at some examples, but some are not Photoshop. We begin with this one here. This is all iPhone. This is one of those days you feel a little naughty. Is it naughty? Okay, maybe that doesn't translate well, but these are knots in wood. And this is when you're feeling extra naughty. You would send this out as I guess maybe as a text to somebody. Hey, I'm feeling naughty. How about this one? Chain smoking. There you go. These are just stupid stuff that you do because you got too much time on your hands. All right, now let's do some Photoshop, okay? So here's a single image, bunch of kids at the beach. And at the time, I just told them to put their hands in the air. I don't know why. I had no concept in mind. This is an old photograph. It's at least 10 years old. And only recently did it come in handy for me to combine those hands with cheerleading contest in San Francisco. So I pulled a couple of those flying bodies and photoshopped them into my, my composition here. So this again, too much time on my hands. And here's another example. In the Las Vegas workshop, we came across these metal shutters. and there's light streaming through onto her face. And this is the result. Well, now that I have too much time in my hands, I'm thinking, wait a minute, let's put a little color in there. Yeah, color balance, layers in Photoshop. That's real simple. But of course, could I stop there? No, I'm obsessed. I have too much time in my hands. So I went ahead and did the neon version. Again, Photoshop and layers. Here we've got a couple of lions from my Masai Mara workshop, which was 2 years ago. And because I got too much time in my hands, I'm thinking, wow, I put that back in a raw file and make a severe underexposure of tungsten white balance, and I get a night scene. Ooh. Then I come back with my history brush and I paint back in the foreground, which will look like car headlights, and then drop in a full moon. Ooh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, we were on safari. A full moon came up and we had these two lions in the headlights of the car. No, that's Photoshop. And what do you do with a stack of paper from the old Delhi print shops? Well, you use the canvas tool because you got too much time in your hands, and you just flip and flop and upside down and you make designs with it. God knows what else you're going to do. You're stuck. Might as well learn more Photoshop. Same idea here. You're shooting up at a building in San Diego. Single exposure, but let's have some fun with it. Duplicate, flip, flop, join them together with the canvas tool and create designs. Again, this is, you put this on your Instagram account and put it under minimalism. And my God, maybe they'll feature you. Here you're going to take a question.
I think a plane is missing in the previous picture.
The what? Yeah, I agree. Yes, you're right. Oh my God, I need to put a plane in there and then tell people I got lucky.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, I have a perfectly good storm coming in the Masai Mara. Okay. This is nothing. This is it. Okay. And yet I got so much time in my hands, I decided I don't like the sky. I'm going to put a rainbow in there. So let's put a rainbow in there. Okay. Why not? This is a perfectly good rainbow from Holland, which went to waste because it was just nothing but a bunch of houses at the bottom of the frame. So I'm thinking, why don't you replace this perfectly great sky with a rainbow? And I did. Now, speaking of rainbows, because I got too much time in my hands, this is what happens in the Masai Mara to zebras when they stare at rainbows too long. Yeah, they become affected, poisoned by rainbow. So now we have a rainbow zebra. And again, too much time in my hands. So I finally had a chance to take a picture that has a crooked horizon, a dirty sensor, and some not very good light from Iceland. This is back in 2017. And let's pretend I had better light and that there was better color and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, there you go. Why not? Yep, too much time in my hands. So let's take advantage of it and spend time in Photoshop. I photographed this.
Bryan.
Yes, sir.
I can only wonder what you're going to do in next 2-3 months.
Well, I hope it's not 2 or 3 months because I'm planning on teaching June 6th in Colorado.
Oh, we would be lucky.
I hope so. Believe me, because I'm getting stir crazy. Here's some drapes that I photographed just because I like the colors, and I thought, I don't know how to do that. And then sure enough, later, I took a portrait of Natick and Plangdi, the makeup artist model, wearing a blonde wig, and I slid her in behind those curtains, and there she is. So that's, again, Photoshop. Yes, I couldn't help but think, this is a cow scene from last year in Holland. Maybe you saw this on Instagram. And I don't know why, I have just too much time on my hands. And I thought, man, imagine if you were born with the markings of the world map, So sure enough, there you go. Yep, that's a worldly cow right there, by God. And that's an easy thing to do. I literally pulled that map. I found a black and white map on Google and simply did a screenshot, and then I laid it in there and used the transform tool, which allows me to stretch and move and all sorts of stuff. If you know Photoshop,
you should do a holy cow.
Yeah, holy cow. Yeah, what would that involve? Tell me. Like Swiss cheese? Yeah, that's an idea. I should make a cow with the Swiss cheese. Yeah. All right. I just did this the other day, in fact, because I got too much time in my hands. I photographed this in mind when I was in Agra. In fact, I did a video, You Keep Shooting video about it. But I love textures, and I'm thinking, man, that looks like a face. By face, I mean a profile of a face, a straight on face. And so I'm thinking, well, what could I do with that? Oh, I know. I could take Natick and Plangdi, who was with me at the latest Holi when we were in Varanasi 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, 4 weeks ago, and take her face and put it inside that spot and then throw some shadow light on it. And yeah, there you go. This is overkill, but I want to share this with you because I'm thinking about starting something new just because I'm in an ornery mood. But many of the images we see, well, I don't want to say many, but I'm sure there's a few. In fact, I know there's more than a few images on Instagram where people are utilizing countless presets and dropping in skies and making light that wasn't there and blah, blah, blah. I got no problem with it. I just wish they'd be forthcoming about it, but many times they're not. In any event, I'm forthcoming. This is the shot I took, but after a little bit of time, and because I got too much time in my hands, I created a little more dramatic lighting. And that took all of 5 minutes to do. I don't have any of those presets or whatever they're called, drop-ins or whatever. But so I'm thinking I'll put this on Instagram next week and then show people the real photo. And then set a challenge and say, I challenge anybody else out there. If you got shots like this, show me the raw file. I'm sure I'll get a lot of takers. I'm sure. In fact, I'll probably get none. There's some bark, painted bark. This is at the Beatles. There's a Beatles, what's the word? Not statue, but like a monument kind of a thing to John Lennon in Prague. A mural. And anyway, they spray painted all the trees nearby with the same colors. So I take a picture of the bark and photograph Natick and Plangdi. And then in Photoshop, not in camera, but in Photoshop, I blend the two together and paint her eyes through the bark, as well as the hat and the hair, and just put her hands and the face in the bark is all pretty much. So again, just simple layer stuff. Here, the wind is blowing like crazy. This is last week. In the bluebonnet fields of Texas. And I take this picture and I blend it with a in-focus photograph, again, in Photoshop. And then in the layer mode, I go back and I paint only the flowers that are in focus onto the canvas, so to speak, and everything else is out of focus. Also, I should mention, this is 3 images, which accounts for, you see like a stuttering effect. There's 3 wind blowing pictures that don't quite line up the same, which is why they're kind of a domino effect. And then the 1 in focus picture, and then using a layer, I just brushed on the areas that are of the focus flowers. And I leave you with this thought. I had this great idea, which is, and this is such an amateur version, but I'm going to really work on this, which is this is the Big Bang, okay? This is how it all happened. There is glass on the edge of the universe, and Earth came flying through the big glass and made the Big Bang. And that accounts for why we have a hole in the universe. All right. I'll finish you with this one thing that some people may or may not realize, but I love to photograph letters. And I leave you with this thought. Again, it's something else that keeps you busy. And the thought is real simple. Why do you photograph letters? And the answer is because you never know when you need a ransom note. So there you go. All right. I'm done, man. Thank you.
That was absolutely brilliant, Bryan.
Oh, thank you.
It's just you being you.
Yeah, no, that's just me. That's right.
I really, really like the passion that you hold. I just hope after 35, 40 years of my photography, I have so much of energy in me. Seriously.
You what?
After 30, 40 years of photographing, I hope I have so much of energy.
Oh, trust me, you will. You will. So you're an amazingly talented person. And yeah, trust me, you'll feel like I do, which is you're not looking forward to dying, not at all. No.
I
But
have loved it. I have
uh,
loved it. Both, I'm just getting in. Hi, Brian.
no, no, guys,
Hello.
guys. Before you guys do ask the questions, let's do a group shot. This is something that we do every day. So I
Oh,
request
okay.
everyone to put on your videos.
Do I go off of stop sharing?
Oh yeah, you could do that.
Okay. There we go.